Percy was still at the works being mended, so the Fat Controller had to give his jobs to the other engines. Thomas and Oliver shared his mail run, Edward and James took his goods trains, Duck and Stepney shunted his trucks, and Henry and Emily took his passengers. They all worked hard as a team together. But they all had other work to do, and doing their work as well as Percy's was proving to be difficult, as the engines found out one night. "It's amazing how much work Percy can get done in one day," cried Henry. "All those passengers! All those goods trains!" exclaimed James. "Percy is a very good engine, and I'm sure he'd do anything to help us if we were at the works," said Duck, "but it's just too much. He has so many trucks to shunt in one day, it's a wonder how he does it all." Just then Oliver arrived. He and Thomas had been taking the last of the mail. "You look puffed out," cried Edward. "He does, doesn't he?" moaned Emily. "If you think I'm tired, wait until you see Thomas. I don't think I've seen him rest at all today." At that moment, Thomas came onto the turntable. He was indeed very tired. His cheeks were redder than James's boiler. "Poor Thomas," whispered the engines to each other. "It's no wonder," said Gordon. "He has lots of passengers to take in one day." "As well as those important goods trains the Fat Controller relies on him to deliver to the docks," added James. "Plus that shunting," said Stepney. The engines watched as the turntable lined up to the sheds. Thomas rolled slowly off. He didn't say a word as he entered the sheds. He took one look at Edward and Henry before saying "Good night," and rolled straight into the back of the shed to sleep. The next morning, Gordon was the last engine to leave the sheds. The last engine except for Thomas. Thomas was still asleep at the back of the sheds. He hoped that he didn't have any more important jobs to do that day. Finally, Thomas woke up, and was shocked to see the sheds were empty. "Oh no," gasped Thomas. "I overslept. I was supposed to take the mail before anybody else woke up." Just then the Fat Controller drove up. "Good morning, Thomas," said the Fat Controller cheerfully. "Please, sir, I'm sorry, sir. I'll puff away right away, sir," gasped Thomas. "Slow down, Thomas," cried the Fat Controller. "You don't have to pull the mail today, or your passengers, or shunt trucks, or any of your special deliveries." "I don't, sir?" asked Thomas. "No, you don't," said the Fat Controller. "The other engines have spoken to me and told me how tired you looked last night. So Murdoch will take your goods trains, Gordon will take your passengers, Toby will take your mail, and Arthur will shunt your trucks." "Oh, thank you, sir," said Thomas, feeling much more happy. "But what am I to do for all day, though?" "You are to take some flatbeds," said the Fat Controller. Flatbeds? Puzzled Thomas. Flatbeds, confirmed the Fat Controller. There are flatbeds waiting for you at Brendam Docks. Please puff there as fast as you can. Salty will tell you more when you get there. And with that, the Fat Controller walked away and Thomas puffed as fast as he could to Brendam Docks. When Thomas arrived at the docks, he got a nasty surprise. "Bust my buffers!" he cried. The docks was packed, with engines and trucks going to and fro, and with cargo being lowered into trucks. Thomas looked round. "Salty!" he cried. "Salty!" And he edged slowly into the docks. "Ahoy there!" cried Salty, as he reversed from in between a line of trucks. Thomas rolled quickly over. "Salty, the Fat Controller told me that you know what to do with the flatbeds I'm supposed to pick up." "That I do, me hearty," said Salty. "They're in the back of the docks. I'll be with you in a minute." And with that, Thomas puffed on. Thomas soon found his flatbeds at the back of the docks and was quickly coupled to them. Just then Salty rolled up, still in between the line of trucks. "Now then," he said, "you must take that empty flatbed to the works for it to be loaded with scrap material. Then these 3 flatbeds need to go to the Sodor suspension bridge to close it off. The arches need strengthening again, you see." And with that, Thomas pumped his pistons and puffed quickly out of the docks. Thomas was looking forward to his important journey. Must be on time, he puffed as he hurried through the countryside. Then he charged at Gordon's Hill. He felt the drag of the heavy flatbeds here. But Thomas didn't give up. He made it to the top and over the hill. "Hooray!" he cried, and he hurried down the other side as fast as his wheels could let him. He rushed out of Henry's tunnel and through the next part of the countryside. At last Thomas came into the junction. He blew his whistle cheerily to let the works manager know he was there. "Beep, beep, I'm here." "Good," said the manager. "Just shunt that flatbed into the siding over there, next to Arthur." But as soon as Thomas had shunted the flatbed, he heard a cry. "Thomas!" shrieked Percy from the engine shed. "Sorry," said Thomas. "I'll talk to you later. I have more work to do." And he puffed off importantly. And with that, Thomas carried on his way. Next up, the Sodor suspension bridge, he puffed. Thomas soon made it to the junction to the Sodor suspension bridge. When Thomas arrived at the bridge, Toby was there. He was taking the mail. "Move along now, Toby," said Thomas. "This bridge will be closed soon." "I better hurry," said Toby. So Toby hurried away before the bridge closed. Feeling pleased with himself, Thomas was uncoupled from the flatbeds and he set off back for the works. The flatbed was loaded and a brake van was added to the train too. Thomas wasted no time. He entered the works, coupled to the flatbed, and steamed away to Brendam Docks. He turned left after passing underneath the bridge, and he rattled through Tidmouth Station. When he arrived back at the docks, Salty was shunting trucks of fish. "I'm back!" cried Thomas. "Well, you were certainly quick," said Salty, feeling very impressed with Thomas. Thomas felt very pleased with himself. The brake van was uncoupled, and Thomas was able to shunt the flatbed into a siding. "I think that's certainly a job well done," said Salty. And feeling happy with himself, Thomas puffed home to Titmill's sheds. He was the only engine at Titmill's sheds, but soon the Fat Controller arrived again. "Well, I heard all about it, and I'm very pleased, Thomas," said the Fat Controller. "The workmen told me how quickly you arrived with the flatbeds to close off the Sodal suspension bridge. And the workmen were very pleased to see the flatbed finally arrive. They needed to get rid of those old spare parts and take them to the mainland." "Thank you, sir," said Thomas. "But I've still got most of the day left. What am I to do now?" "You may stay in the sheds and take the rest of the day off, and talk to someone very special," said the Fat Controller. Thomas now felt very excited. "Who's the someone special, sir?" he asked. But the Fat Controller didn't answer, and soon Thomas saw who the special person to talk to was. It was Percy. Thomas was shocked. "You fixed already?" he asked. "Yes, I am," said Percy, "and I'm glad to be back." And so was Thomas, and he was glad he got to spend the rest of the day talking with his best friend Percy.